Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about how the digital revolution affected print media, specifically how it affected magazines. So today we're just going to be talking about the history of magazines, why people read magazines, and then get more into how when we entered this digital age, how magazines were affected. So first let's talk about why people choose to read magazines. Magazines differentiate from newspapers in that magazines typically are longer and they have more in-depth treatment of their topics. So for example, you're not going to be reading a short half-a-page blurb about Obama. You're going to be reading an entire 3-page article about him. Magazines are published regularly but less frequently than newspapers. This kind of gives them a wow appeal every time a new magazine comes out, rather than you're looking at a newspaper and you see it come out every single day. So it kind of gives readers something to look forward to. Magazines are published on higher quality paper, which allows for better photography. Now this really helped when they first came out differentiate the two, because you're going to see better pictures, and what attracts people mainly to magazines, in my opinion, is going to be those images. So last three things why we choose magazines over newspapers. Magazines typically have a very selected, a very defined audience. This allows for advertisers to target who they want to reach specifically. So if you're going to be reading Cosmo, you're not probably the person who wants to see a ad for a truck or a gun or whatever. You're going to be wanting to see fashion, makeup, just like teen related kind of stuff. So it really allows people to target, like I said, those specific audiences. Many magazines have a national, regional, or even international following. And like I said earlier, they serve as a vital marketing source. So it's really great to differentiate the two between that. Let's talk about the history of magazines. So the first magazine out was in 1731, which is the Gentleman's Magazine in London. I think it's important to say that this was really just the first time the word magazine was used. There might have been other sources of print like this before, but this is the first time we called it a magazine. Alright, and then they gained popularity in the 1800s as famous authors began to release their books one chapter at a time in the form of serials. Some authors that did this include Charles Dickens, Edgar Allan Poe, and even Samuel Huntington's A Class of Civilization, which we've probably talked about in a million classes by now, that was released in the form of serials. So the first American magazine was called the American Magazine. Very clever and creative name, I know. And the last thing I wanted to talk about with the history is the term muckrakers. So this developed in Teddy Roosevelt's term in office. It was kind of journalists who really did investigative reporting on major corporations and government, and they uncovered dirty news, or muck is where the term was coined from. So how did the invention of the television affect magazines? This is kind of where we see the beginning of that digital revolution. So in the 1940s and the 1950s, TV kind of drew the national advertisers that were seeking larger audiences. So think about all those magazines that were once a generalized kind of thing. All those advertisers took their money and put it in TV. So now you're seeing magazines become more specialized. That's where we develop Cosmo and stuff like that, is those magazines who really are just targeting a specific audience, because those people who want to just reach all the masses, like maybe a movie or something like that, they are really going to just move their advertisement dollars to TV. So when we specialize our magazines, our major topics today are going to be news, fashion, women's magazines, which is broken down into age categories, and then you have your family magazines, your sports magazines, you have your ethnic, your medical and health magazines, your political magazines, you have farm magazines, and then you have lifestyle magazines such as crafting, hunting, whatever it is. Then I want to talk about sales and readership. So I think it's important to note with the digital revolution that things change because we want them to change, not just because like that is how they go. Like, we are seeking more like digital things. We're not so much, our generations and kind of the generation before us is looking not necessarily for books. They're looking for something they can touch, interact with. They can watch videos, they can stream, you know, stuff like that. It's accessible at the finger touch whenever they want it. So magazines that are new typically only survive about 2 years. So you're really only seeing those tried and true, like tested magazines that have withstood the test of time. Typically, magazines that are still being printed target older audiences because that is the people who still want the print format and are looking for the print format. So as you can see on page 91 in our textbook, the top 2 magazines are going to be AARP and AARP Bulletin. And then in the other top 10, you're going to see Reader's Digest. Like, my dad subscribes to Reader's Digest. And then you see like National Geographic, Family Circle, Good Housekeeping, Better Homes and Gardens. Not a lot of teenagers are going to be reading those magazines. So as you can see, like, the highly circulated print editions of magazines are mainly targeted at like older audiences. And most magazines today have gone digital. I bought a Cosmo this summer when I was in Mexico. I was going through the airport and I had nothing to do, so I bought a Cosmo. And along with the printed version, it gave me access to the online version, which was super cool. You can see videos, you had interactive, you can go through and click on the pictures, and just, it's kind of cool. I think that's really where the direction of things are headed. Along with the sales and readership, I wanted to talk about this article that I found online. So it kind of just went through magazine covers. I think it was titled Magazine Covers Throughout the Last 100 Years, and it just showed you a comparison of this and that. And I just think it's super cool to look at, just because, yeah, we're talking about the digital revolution, but like I said, the digital revolution occurred because that is where technology was moving, and that's the way people are seeking it to move. So I think it's just kind of cool to not only look at how things digitally evolved, but also what our interests evolved, how humans look at magazines. I think really kind of shows like exactly what the people were looking for, which is kind of cool. So you can see these 2 Time magazines. I think this one was a serial that was printed, and then on the right you see Mark Zuckerberg's image as Person of the Year. And then Cosmo, I think of this as a really graphic change. You see Cosmo, and like it says on the bottom there, a new serial by Clarence Hemington. You have that versus an image of Nicki Minaj strutting her stuff. And then you see the National Geographic magazine in 1896, super like boring cover. It just says the contents on there, and then you see this beautiful image of Pluto. And I just think it's really a stark change as well. Obviously this one you see JFK and then Amy Schumer, very, very different with the GQ magazine. 17, kind of stuck with the same format the whole time, but definitely the outfit has changed a lot, how people dress. Vanity Fair, Caitlyn Jenner, and then this Vogue magazine. Just kind of cool what we picture as iconic and what we want to put on the cover of one of the most popular magazines. So what does the future look like? What is our outlook with this print source of information? Really, with the digital revolution, we are going towards those tablet and online versions. We want to digitize this, but also for those people who are still looking for like their printed source, they still have that option for now. So I think, like I said earlier, the digital versions of magazines really offer a lot more. You have your interactive links, you have videos, you have cool activities, you can click on the picture, zoom in on the picture, stuff like that. Printing magazines also probably will stop. I wouldn't say they stop, but it's becoming less popular to print magazines because of the high cost associated. Not just the cost of like, this is like an expensive piece of paper, but it's a high impact on the environment when you're printing that much paper. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys. definitely just kind of went over how magazines have developed and changed over time and what we are doing with them digitally to make them better for the next and up and coming generations.